Hi, everyone, again. Glad you decided to join us today. We tried and did our best to make this event insightful for you. And we will have no slides, just a live discussion. And feel free to join us in the chat whenever you have comments or questions. Just type in and we'll stop we'll make pauses during the conversation and let you in. I will read the questions and we'll answer in. And I got the first quick question to you guys, our audience, just to know a little bit more about you and just have maybe fun. You can see this poll on your screens. Please answer, do not hesitate. I'll share the results. And while you answer, I have just a few words to say about us. We are Railsware, a remote-friendly product studio since 2007. You might know some of our products like Coupler.io, Mailtrap, Calendly. And we are crazy about quality and mastering our engineering craft. So I guess, I don't know, 99% of Rails variants are T-shaped, and product mindset is sort of like default feature of all our engineers. Okay, we got some answers. Guess I'm still answering. Okay, people joining, and we have more answers in our poll.
I wonder what would be the results.
Oh yeah. We are, well, 61% participated. 3.
Maybe people start to Google.
And by the way, if you have your own answer, you could just write it down to the chat. This is fine because we've prepared some of them, but
yeah. You're free to write like anything, like fun as well.
Sure.
Okay. So ready, set, go, and poll, share results.
Oh, I'm actually surprised.
Great. So we're having the right people on our webinar. Great.
Well, there are no like right or wrong definitions here in the poll. Like it's how you perceive the term. But it's interesting, like that many people have similar vision to ours.
Yep, that's
Cool.
great. Well, today we'll talk about like everything mentioned here in the poll. Artur, Julia, and Alex will talk about benefits and downsides of working with product engineers and being them. Guys, welcome our speakers. Julia, product manager, our full stack engineer, Artur, and Alex, who can do both coding and managing product creation. And now you guys please say a few words about yourself to the people.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Nastya. And Nastya is our host, if you noticed. Yeah, so I'm Julia, and really glad to see everyone here, and greetings from Argentina, Buenos Aires. Well, actually, technically, I'm from Ukraine, so I won't have this fancy Spanish accent, so my apologies for that. But anyway, I've been working in software development my whole life. I had a chance to work in outsourcing, in startup and in product companies, and currently I do product management for about 3 years, and well, I actually love it. One of my most favorite positions so far. At the moment, I'm responsible for a bunch of features at Mailtrap, which is Railsware own product, and I also do product management for Railsware consultancy clients. And well, speaking of my career path, I came to product management from more technical roles. I worked as a QA for many years. I worked as a business analyst even for a longer period of time. But my passion, it always was like to see this big picture and understand why we're doing what we are doing. And now, like being a product manager, you have this opportunity in full. And this position, it really widens your horizon. And apart from that, I'm really excited by this intersection between technology, business, marketing, and even a bit of science in my job. And what about you, Alex?
Yeah, hi, my name is Alex, and I have the long history in Railsware. I've joined the company 11 years ago, and I've started as backend engineer, as the Ruby backend engineer, and then later evolved into the full stack when the front end started to grow. And currently I'm working as the product manager and product owner on one of our products called Coupler.io. And during all this time in the company, we've been growing the product mindset and culture inside of the company while working with the great clients like Calendly or SendGrid, and currently while doing our own products in the company. So today we'll be glad to share some of our engineering culture experience that we built over these years. Are you Tori? Yeah, Tori.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So unlike Alex, I'm still working mostly with code as an engineer. I joined Railsware 4 years ago, having 11 years in total of the professional experience. Currently, I'm responsible for engineering onboarding on one of our own products, Coupler.io. And before that, I was responsible for building Android team for a Norwegian company. Yep. That's me.
Cool. Thank you, guys. So I guess we are ready to jump into the topic. Just a few words about the rules. I've already said that whenever you have a question, comment, please write it in the chat. And I hope you don't mind if we record this webinar just in case somebody misses it or want to have this recording. So let's do it. Julia, the mic is yours. Just tell us a bit about the current situation on the market for a start, and then we'll dive into the product engineer term.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think this would be no news for everyone here that our software development industry is pretty young, and it's still continuing to develop and to shape itself. Like, for example, the agricultural industry is much more older, and all the processes and all the roles and the planning models, they are more established there. And this is true internationally. Like, the software industry is young everywhere because the technology was adopted more or less at the same time in all the countries, in all the regions. But the shape of the industry, and the state of the industry, it is not the same in different regions. And it means like the overall business culture you have and the typical career paths of specialists, they are different. For example, there is demand for different skill set, let's say in Eastern Europe, if compared to North America. Or like the IT jobs market in Southeast Asia is different from the IT jobs market in South America. And I refer not to the salaries, but to the positions and the responsibilities of people. And this is really important because the industry environment in which you are in, it influences like our career choices, and it dictates the opportunities that we can choose from. For example, we have those regions with the predominant outsourcing business model like Eastern Europe or Southeastern Asia. And this environment, it will demand a certain skill set and even a mindset from a specialist. And it is main feature, if we talk about outsourcing, is that teams, they do not participate in the product development like from A to Z. This is the only part of this process that is outsourced to them. And well, it has certain benefits, this model, but the main disadvantage, I'd say, is like of the fact that you do not see the whole picture, is that people that work in this industry, they often have incorrect cause-consequence model. So imagine a project has closed, you have a business owner, and they make a vague comment to the team like, we're out of business because we ran out of budget. And the research and development team, they could interpret it as like, oh, the business wasted too much on marketing and underinvested in code-based improvements. And they do not have information to make another conclusion because they see only code. And in contrast, in reality, it can be like business wasted too much on full-featured product and business didn't innovate fast enough and they lost to a competitor. But you do not have any data even to come up to something close to this conclusion. And well, so the regions and the states of the industry are different, but still there is one thing that is in common, like everywhere. And this is this cultural shift from waterfallish and enterprise-ish processes towards quick delivery and smaller, like not siloed teams. And this means that there are no more explicit layers of responsibilities in companies. Like you can imagine 15 years ago, it was pretty common in some Ukrainian companies, like you had sales team, and the sales team, they acquired the clients and they handled all the financial questions. Then we had managers, and managers agreed on the requirements and they proxied all the communication. Then you had engineers that coded, and then you had QAs who handled all the testing. So if a client had some concerns about the product quality, or QAs had questions about behavior of end users, everyone had to go through multiple communication layers just to ask a simple question. And this was really exhausting, and it demotivated many people to ask questions when needed. And now the situation is different. It's pretty common that QAs can communicate directly with the client, or client can even join some engineers stand-ups if they want to. But okay, let's get back to the point, like what it all has to do with the product engineers. Product engineer is a paradigm in which an engineer understands the big picture and has an impact on any part of product development. Like those people, they are not just writing code, they are creating a product. And this is a big difference, and we'll touch a bit later in the details. And this role, the product engineer role, is pretty new in many markets.
And that actually made me realize that it's a bit like with designers and product designers. But yeah,
it's good comparison.
Yeah, let's break down those core characteristics so that it's more clear. We'll talk today about communication, clarifying requirements, long-term collaboration, and how thinking about long-term makes our work better today, as well as delivering results of what we do. So starting from communication, as it's vital for any collaborative process, as building products is a team sport really. And it requires people to talk to one another, and that in turn requires to use a common language and common terms, because otherwise it would lead to misunderstandings. So Julia, I recall you've been involved in an interesting case where communication between engineers and QAs didn't quite work. What happened?
Now, which case do I mean? I have like tons of them, and communication didn't work.
There was one with a hospital assessment wizard, I think.
Yeah, this is a good example. And yeah, so the case was, imagine this feature, we had to add the hospital assessment wizard. Like it's a questionnaire to assess the hospital quality. And at the end, it gave you the overall score. And like a controlling person, they could come to a hospital, use this feature like to mark what is good, what's bad at the hospital, and generate a report with some score at the end, and then later on like share this report with some Ministry of Health or whatever, or they wanted to share it with. And so we have those requirements, and an engineer creates a bunch of tickets in the Epic, like models, views, controllers, etc. And the work starts, and at some point, QA asks, like, guys, what can be tested already? And imagine this answer from the engineer, like he tells to QA, you can run add hospitals controller and start assessment controller with some seed data, and you can check that the tables hospital cleanliness and maintenance are populated in the database. And then you can check that score in the view shows all scores. Like for QA, this would be like some mumbo jumbo, and they would most probably wait till final UI is done, which means that testing is delayed, and the logical errors, if any, they would be discovered only in the later stages. Now imagine another type of an answer, like an engineer tells, we've implemented logic to add hospitals and assessment sheets, but there is no UI yet. And there is a simple UI to see the list of scores. Like with this type of answer, a QA would probably ask to create a simple UI to test adding hospitals and assessment sheets, or they would ask how to do this from the console, like if they have right skill set. And the logical errors, like the hierarchy in the assessment criteria that could have been incorrect, they would be discovered right at this stage. So it's really important. Then both answers, like they transmit the exactly same information, but if you present it in a more QA friendly way in this example, you can get better results.
Yeah, so the takeaway here is, if I got it correctly, to have some way to verify the results of the underlying code, right? This way or another. And that could be to allow exporting data from the application, right? And then potentially that can mean to just import CSV somewhere and analyze it in Google Sheets or in Excel if the UI is not ready, or perhaps to have some generated admin panel, right, for further inspection. If that could be done. Which reminds me of an interesting case we had. We wanted to introduce a seemingly simple change. We wanted to add the UI information where the imported data was last changed. And at that point, we had 3 different columns in database related to execution of imports. And we thought that one will have the information that we need, but actually it turned out that none of them had. So we spent 2 rounds of trial and error before we finally ended up adding one more. And all of that happened because we simply couldn't communicate with one another clearly. And what helped was to discuss the behavior, what users will get in different cases, to avoid relying on terms that were misunderstood, but rather to understand the expected mechanic. So if you cannot find like a agreement or consensus, or there is a risk of misunderstanding one another, then maybe it's better to just discuss certain cases, what should happen, what users should see in those cases, rather than relying on labels and terms. But I would like to hear Alex's thought on that, given his dual perspective as a product manager and engineer. What do you think about the common language and how to use it in a team?
I think that this is very important, and I want to start from the introducing the term of T-shapedness. We've talked a bit, mentioned it during the talk before, but and how it helps to speak a common language. And the good analogy here would be the building a house, because it is not just making walls or painting or plastering or whatever, but at the same time, it includes all of those activities, and it cannot be done without them. And it cannot be done without communicating between those parts and especially the same language. But if it is done without the communication, there is the huge risk to having dissatisfaction on any of the sides, the client or team members, or those who involved, right, in the process. And there are 3 stages or levels of the teamwork. The first one is the worst one for me. It is dependence. It is the case when each one depends to each other, and dependence is more an attitude of you, like you take care of me, and we can see it from time to time in the real world, and it produces the blockers. It doesn't allow to move forward, and it decreases the speed, and even sometimes make the conflicts because of the misunderstanding of the people.
Sorry for interrupting. It sounds to me like some toxic relationships.
Yeah, this is true, but this is crazy if the entire team has this point of view, right? But sometimes it happens just locally in the certain team or the certain team members or whatever, and then it still affects. And
of course,
yeah. And the other stage is independence. This is the next level, when the person is able to do everything on, or really a lot on the own, and move forward independently. It doesn't mean that you has to be an expert in all of the areas, because it is close to impossible and very hard. But what is great, that it allows to unblock yourselves all the time. And this is when T-shapedness comes. T-shaped people are usually independent in a lot of aspects, and they additionally, being T-shaped means that you understand this, on a certain level the context around your main skill, playing related roles and speaking the common language, because you understand the language of the people around you. Yeah, and the good example here is when engineers know multiple technologies, and are able to organize product development process, learn product industry domain, or communicate with the customers and help them. And it would be like really tricky to communicate with the customers with the technical language, like you, Julia, mentioned before, with those controller sections and something like that.
Impossible.
Impossible, that's true. And the third one, so the issue with the previous one is more like the independence of individual, and everyone has its own limit, and there is no way to fight alone against an army, and every success goes to the teamwork, right? And here is when interdependence level comes to help. It is when every T-shaped team member boosts the skills of each other, helps and understands each other, substitute each other when there is a work spike on the certain function, or when someone has the vacation, or there are some unexpected sick leave or something. Mm-hmm. But what is more important here is that everyone is contributing to the product overall product success, and everyone understand the product goals, and it helps to make the better decision during the team collaboration.
Yeah,
indeed. That's true, and I can share 2 examples, I think. One is with the testless process, where before we had QAs, engineers were doing all the testing, manual testing, after we were merging things together just to see how they interact with one another and if we actually meet the acceptance criteria from product managers. And when QAs appeared, we realized that we need to change a bit how we prepare how to test instructions. And what we started doing is to use pull request templates in GitHub. And that kind of forced us to always include the how to test section. And that in turn helped us to understand if some changes can be tested or not. And if they couldn't be tested, then we had to find a way to make it somehow verifiable. So as we mentioned before, there were cases where we just added some fields to admin panel so that can be the underlying logic can be verified somehow, because otherwise, QAs would have to go to database and dig there, which they might not want to do, and that's not what the product should be doing anyway. Bearing in mind that we all move towards the same goal, create this feeling of unison of work, but that's actually not enough to ensure we're on the same page. So
but this is really thoughtful, like when you think how to explain QAs, what to test, like when you start to think about the other team members and how they would how to help them and how to do better job together.
This is the great basis for QAs to start, right, to prepare the testing requirements and extending them, because there is this synergy, because engineers prepare the how to test section on the way how they mostly implemented the way, and then QAs make it more tricky and then extend this way. It
sounds like we're trying to shape some perfect organism, like of everyone interconnected. We can conquer the universe with it.
Yeah, maybe not that perfect, but at least to think about how it's going to be used, right? And then use it ourselves while we build it and verify if that's doing what it's meant to be doing. But yeah, since you touched the perfect machinery, there is this thing with unclear requirements that I would like to talk about. I faced many times, and I believe you too. And I had a thought that if product managers could prepare perfectly strict requirements, then they could just generate the application code themselves, right? But that's not the case. And our job is to translate the requirements and acceptance criteria into working code that should meet them. But I've heard, Julia, that you had a case when you tried to create super strict requirements. How did that go?
Long story short, it didn't go well, like at all. And this is actually an interesting topic, and how detailed the requirements should be is like one of the hottest topics in my managerial experience. And why? I believe because translating business requirements into a functional system is like, it is really, really hard, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong. And on top of that, like, well, we're talking about perfect systems, but none of the requirements are ever full, like never, do not expect this. Why it is impossible to think of all the cases in advance. And here the communication between the technical and the business parts is the key. Like, for example, for business, the rule of thumb is to explain what has to be done versus how to do this. Like, believe me, you don't want a manager or a CEO to specify how to do your job. But still, nevertheless, many times the discussions are raised around like how to do this part. And well, I have quite an embarrassing story here. I'm not sure that I shared it previously with someone. So once I managed to go too far down this rabbit hole. So the feature was, imagine we had to categorize strings based on 10 different business rules, like how many words the string has and whether it contains certain words or their combinations. Well, it sounds easy from the first sight until you start to actually implement it and find cases that some strings can fall into several categories at once, or they do not match any category. Then you have this plural and singular forms of the words, and you have articles, and they start to influence the categorization. So nightmare. And there were just too many corner cases, and the engineer demanded the description of the categorization algorithm. And me, well, partially of curiosity, partially of willingness to help, partially, well, honestly, because of stupidity, I decided to go deeper with a degree of the detail of the requirements. And like, besides adding the examples for all the possible cases, I started to add like if-else statement for each question. And
you
like
started programming, Julia.
I think this was quite far away from programming, honestly. It's more like if-else based AI, I don't know. And yeah, so I started to add a lot of statements here, there, and of course, this was very far from an ideal implementation plan, and even more questions were raised by the engineer, and I kept covering them like a nerd, like in all the documents. And at the end, so these requirements, they looked that good and solid, like that had examples, cases, schemas, documentation, like many pages, that I even wanted to add them to my portfolio. Like they looked very organized, like a book or something. But luckily I didn't do that. And these requirements, they didn't solve the problem. So the coded categorization, it worked badly and slowly. And the engineer kept complaining about the quality of requirements. And eventually, like what we did, and this is a really embarrassing moment, like we throw everything away. We redid everything from scratch. And what actually helped, we sat together with the business side, with the engineer, and we had this long session, and we did categorization of many examples manually. And we took screen and we explained why we moved into this or that category. And at the end, the engineer, he built like his own model in his head, how to categorize the strings. And that model, it had nothing to do with that my if-else document. So do not ever try if-else in the requirements. But well, like not all the examples are bad here. And I had another case. At some point, the engineer decided to confirm the implementation details with me in advance. And like the reason for that, previously when he was implementing the feature, he had to rewrite some parts of it. Like, well, it always happens because something didn't work correctly. And the initial requirements were ambiguous, as it also happens. And he used his assumptions to cover the unclear parts, and some of the assumptions were not correct. So to decide to avoid the situation in the future, he decided to double check this with me. And the next feature, what he did, he translated these high-level business requirements into this high-level Ruby spec, but instead of using like the real functions and variables, he used human-friendly descriptions. And thus, like this level of requirements, they were obviously okay for him. They were okay for me to understand what's happening there. And it helped us to catch the logical errors at this stage, like before he moved on.
Yeah, that's a nice trick with those descriptions. I've used that too with RSpec documentation format if someone uses Ruby. And that's super useful because it allows to extract test descriptions, and they can be sent to less technical people for review, and that gives an idea if we are on the right track with meeting the requirements. But I haven't found something similar for Jest. So if anyone knows how to extract test descriptions from a running test suite, then please let me know in the chat. Would be grateful.
And Arthur, it pushes, I guess, to think about the description that other people will understand, like comparing to the regular engineering test cases for the engineers that just says what was tested, like on the variables level.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, I'm kind of against implementation-based test descriptions because they just repeat what code does, right? I'm all for explaining the cases and business value or behavior in the descriptions, because this is something that others can understand and it can be verified. So yeah, I'm all for it. Nobody likes that, but I kind of force it as I see it valuable. Yeah, so getting back to your examples, Julia, the first one was kind of depressing, I would say. It reminded me of some...
Well, it was not that bad, okay, we survived.
It wasn't that bad, but the outcome was quite bad, and reminded me of some fellow old school developers. And the second one actually seems to be closer to the product-driven engineering, I would say. Understanding requirements and translating them into code is kind of necessary and it's good. But what would be great is to be able to simplify requirements, right? To avoid all those if-elses if possible, or at least identify them early on. And if it's just a conditional, then it's fine. But if there are some potential roadblocks, then it would be great to know ahead. And I must say that I had the luck to work with Alex, and we still work together. And his superpower is actually to do just that, to simplify requirements, find quiz that can be cut. So Alex, what's the secret?
Well, there is no really secret, and there is Pareto principle that has been known for ages, when 20% of efforts lead to 80% of results, and then it is repeated again and again when something is pushed forward, right? And the main goal is to find those 20%, and in the most cases, their name is edge cases. I guess Julia were producing a lot of edge cases in her documentation and requirements on the previous example. Yeah, but at the moment I want to stop here, and I'm not talking that edge cases is something bad, and it is super important to understand them on the early stages and document them, work with them, but consciously placing them in the proper priority is very important. I had a good example on one of our products. We had a situation when QA found the bug in billing system, and from the first look, it seems like it is super important because it is about money. But the bug was reproduced when the customer has to downgrade, upgrade, then do a certain action, downgrade, and upgrade again, yes, kind of, it is really hard to make those actions, and I guess nobody from real people would do and repeat it. And even if
by the typical thing, it's a typical thing for QAs to do.
Yeah, this is cool. They're testing the boundaries of application, right? And so kind of nobody from the real people would do, and if someone will even do that, it could be easily handled through the support as the custom case managed, and that's it. And all such things goes to the 80% of efforts and 20% of results, which stops us from reaching the goal and starts eating power and eating the time, power, and progress. Right?
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that it is easier said than done, Alex, because like there is there is a reason why people are obsessed with corner cases. Like we choose our professions because of many factors, because of the industry state that we're in, and well, a lot of other things, but mostly because it brings us pleasure. So we love doing what we do, and this has something to do with our like low-level brain chemistry. Like for example, if you take designers, they feel happy and satisfied when they observe pretty and well-designed things, like something that an engineer may not even notice like in their whole life. But at the same time, a designer won't feel any excitement if they have to figure out how a complex system works. Like at least they would be bored, and they like if they have to do this very often, they could even quit their job. But for an engineer, understanding and creating complex system is a good source of those dopamines and endorphins in the brain. This is what excites them about their job. And QAs, they are investigators by nature. So finding those corner cases, it gives them this joy. And now you have this QA joy combined with the engineer's passion to build complex systems, like with all the corner cases covered. And it gives us all this vicious cycle when teams start to spend resources on cases that are not related to real business or to real customer problems.
Yeah, but thankfully, product managers love to prioritize things, and or in this case, deprioritize actually. So yeah, we had those cases where QAs were happy creating tickets, and the managers were happy putting them in the icebox, and everyone got happy, especially engineers, I think. Maybe not that. Maybe QA is not that necessarily, but well, that's kind of where it had to stop.
But we're keeping the balance, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice catch here that managers also have own joy. But anyway, my point here is like this is really hard to stop doing what you like something that gives you pleasure. But we must recognize those situations when we start to do something like just to amuse ourselves, as opposed like to focusing on a mutual goal.
Yeah, and by the way, I forgot about our famous classical Railsware example that shows the same, but on the product level. The example is with the Calendly project, and when the Calendly owner came to us with the product idea, he prepared like a lot of requirements and have all the possible integrations for the different calendars and wanted them at once. And we documented them properly. It helped helped to focus on the single integration with the Google Calendar, as it was the most popular one, and it had the most segment of the users, and was the good place to start. And what is more interesting, that currently Calendly is assessed as the multi-billion dollars product, and they still have those requirements, and most of them they're not done yet, and they're working on some of the initial ideas at this point.
Yeah, and I wish to know which 20% of efforts, because I think that's what you referred to, will lead to the next billion-dollar company. I will tell you.
This comes with experience.
Yeah, this comes from experience.
And sometimes with luck. We shouldn't exclude it.
Indeed.
And focus, I think, because it's easy to derail any project, right? Working on those edge cases. And instead, it might be worth just to cover the 1 or 2 most probable edge cases and collect statistics about the rest. We do that with, for example, Stackdriver logs. So we monitor those cases or sentry errors. Those are 2 techniques that we use to monitor edge cases that we deliberately not implemented. But since we're on it, I would like to stress one thing: the focus of product managers and QAs is actually on how the product works or should be working. Meaning, for example, logic of user flows. And yes, as Julian mentioned, she can, as product manager, I guess, hold the wider picture in their head. And I think that wouldn't be possible if she hold the burden of understanding the underlying code and all the quirks that are there, or it would be a massive challenge, I think. And that's our job.
Thanks for protecting like managers from digging deeper into the code.
Yeah, I wore your shoes at some point with another of our own internal products this time, and I was wearing both hats as a product manager and as an engineer, and it was really hard to, think about the product, knowing everything about the underlying code that then I would have to implement. So it was kind of hard to maintain the
very
right
different layers.
Yeah, different layers, and switching between those is hard. So yeah, you kind of have to limit yourself from the details to understand the wider picture. But since we have all the details already and we know how the code works, that kind of allows us to go one level up and build a slightly wider picture and look on the product, on how it works, not just how a single feature or user journey works, but how it goes with other parts of the product and what users can do with that. And I believe that will make us more insightful and valuable in the long run.
That's true, and this is the good exercise, Arthur. It was hard, but then it helps to kind of to keep the balance between those two, between engineering and product management, keeping and holding this role. I guess before moving forward, we have a chat, so you guys could ask questions. Don't hesitate. We could do interruption and answer them, or we could answer them in the end. Right. So we've just like we've just talked about the cutting corners and omitting edge cases, and from my perspective, cutting scope helps, saves times, and make product features cheaper and feedback faster on the early stages. But it requires well-defined long-term thinking and understanding consequences. And it is important to always begin with the end in mind and understand what is the goal and how it will look in the end. Envision what is the product needs in the future. Otherwise, there is the huge risk to get into the constant refactoring and redoing loop, quickly grow in technical depth, and that technical depth will just slowly kill the progress. And technical depth requires some special attention, and it is the same like keeping the kitchen cleaner. I guess no one just likes that, but it is like really hard to make the next dishes when it is not clear and prepared, right? It has to be done like before the previous dish, or like before making the new one, or after the making the previous one. And
or order food.
Yeah. Then then the trash bin has to be also cleaned up. Otherwise, those boxes will just keep all the space. Yeah, I personally have the question, the very simple question to assess the technical depth, like, and what, how much it will cost in the future comparing to like fixing it in the future comparing to fixing it right now. And in case if this situation is this estimation, sorry, doesn't differ much, then it is fine to fix it later.
And there is something, I guess, that it's easy to overlook, which is the time spent understanding context, right? So when we start working on a story, then we spend some time to go through the requirements, to understand what it's all about, figure out the edge cases, which to skip, and so on. So sometimes it might be, or maybe not sometimes, but quite often, to fix the technical debt right away, if it's nearby or close or affects the work that we do, because we are already in context. So imagine fixing it right away or creating a task, prioritizing it, and getting back to it in 3 months' time. Then you will kind of have to go through the code and understand it once more. And if you fix it right away, then this time will be saved. But I've heard that product managers might hate technical debt because they want features. What's your take, Julia?
Well, I won't lie, and I will not tell you that everyone loves technical debt and refactoring. But of course, like nobody hates that. Like people find the ways to deal with it. And this is also like similar to the how detailed the requirements should be. This is also a tense topic between business and tech. And well, I must confess that non-technical people also do refactoring. Like when you move, for example, a project from one issue tracker to another, it is refactoring of a business process. Or like when you reorganize the design library, it is the refactoring of the design project. And I can give many examples here, like restructuring the teams, like changing the legal business entities of a company, or rebalancing the responsibilities between the departments, or like something as simple as cleaning up the documents folder. And even that example with the kitchen, it can be also a refactoring. Like when you start to do something, you start to clean up the dishes, but then you're like, okay, I need to clean the stove, I need to clean the cupboards, and like all this process becomes similar to refactoring. Yeah, the point here is like nobody is stranger to refactoring, whatever term we use to name it. But the biggest problem with the refactoring is its predictability, like how much time it will take. And this problem usually becomes visible with the code refactoring. Why? Because it is complex. It is much more complex than to reorganize the documents in your folder. It takes much more time, and the most important one, like high costs are involved. And you can do it right, you can do it wrong. We had an example, we were redesigning the navigation in the application, and it seemed to be a smaller task at the beginning, but we ended up with 3 months of redesigning the navigation. The message from the engineer who did it was always like, I'm almost done, I'm almost there, like tomorrow I will finish, and with this end date always being moved further. Well, I think everyone was in the same situation. And at some point we figured out that the guy here refactored half of our front end, like under the hood, which, okay, to be honest, it was a good thing itself, because our front end, it was far from being ideal. But the fact, like this work, it was hidden, this workload, it was invisible, and his like guerrilla refactoring style, it broke all the release plans. We didn't know when to coordinate the marketing activities. We didn't know when to promise something to the customers. And more importantly, it killed the trust in the team. Like nobody knew after that what to expect from the guy in the future. And well, there are ways how to do this right. We had another case. So you have this roadmap, and the part of the roadmap were the enhancements of the tasks module in the application. And the existing code base, it didn't have the architecture to support all the required enhancements. Like, for example, tasks, they didn't have the start date and the due date. And the existing model of the task, it had to be fully rewritten. And so what happens? The engineer figures this out, and he explains the situation in advance, like for everyone. He prepares the scope of the refactoring, and he tells business, like in management, like, guys, we have this issue, we need to refactor this, and that in order to support like these 5 features that you want to add. And well, nobody was happy, like we weren't like, yeah, refactoring, let's do it again. But we could accept this, like business is aware of this extra work. We can plan the budget and the time, the delivery dates are predictable, we know when to coordinate marketing activities. And important thing, the goal of the refactoring was clear to everyone, because in the previous example, why did the guy decided to refactor the front end? Like we didn't have any good reason, like besides like some general spring cleanup. Yeah.
So you touched a very important point. I think that technical debt and refactoring to clean it up has to be visible, and has to be visible kind of before the work starts, right? So that it can be planned and it doesn't affect like other activities of surrounding roles. And I think that it can be a good approach to actually address the technical debt while planning next big feature, or actually do some technical context discovery before starting, even just to understand what we need to fix and what we need to clean up before working on the next big feature, just to mitigate risks of getting into the debt trap. But when we start refactoring, that also makes sense to keep the goal of the task in mind, because it's easy to follow the rabbit and
do not follow the rabbit.
do not follow the rabbit. Keep the goal of the task and clean up in small bits in each task or in every second task, let's say, and then something good will happen. I think.
Yeah, and it reminds me some of the situation where did you had like the situation when people misunderstood flexibility and agile processes? I have the good example. We've been helping the company that was doing microcredit products and delivering them across different countries all over the world. And as any financial product, it is well regulated and has strict legal requirements that are different for each individual country. The type of the documents that has to be submitted, the format of those documents, then the validation that has to be passed, and some loan validations in the different databases and so on. And we've released it for a few countries and started collaborating with the UX team. The UX team was on the client side for launching it for the next company, like the next country, sorry. And we worked with them and prepared the requirements for the first step of the visa that was collecting just the personal information like the name, date of birth, and so on, and planned to proceed, but with the product discovery session. But UX team was surprised by that, pointing out that it is not required at all, as they are using agile methodology, and we must proceed to the next iteration when the first part will be done. And they even rejected a collaboration further, claiming that we are trying to bring the waterfall process into their agile team. Yep, and it was not really, this is an example when it wasn't really valid increment, and without knowing all financial requirements for the particular countries, we might build something that has to be redone after the each iteration. And fortunately, it was already the third country we've been launching the product, and our previous experience and the shapeness of the team helped to architect the flow correctly. We even took some part of the UX responsibility, and we did it correctly from the beginning, but it could happen much worse if we would just follow the approach of knowing just a small bit of the information and start acting there. Yep, and I guess the main learning here is that the one-wheel car may look really funny and nice and creative, but it will not be able to drive with the long-term road. It might be that it will just down the hill, and that's it, but the one direction only.
Yeah, it's like you create like not the first version of something, like a big module, something can on its own, it's not viable.
Yeah, that's a fun analogy. And I think that understanding that you build a car or something that should help you move around would lead not to releasing just the wheel, right?
Yes.
You could make a scooter or something, or a bicycle instead. So I think that having some kind of a product or a feature vision while working on a task helps not to create the excessive tech debt. And I see an interesting question that every line of code is technical debt anyway, and I'll refer to it because yeah, the best code is the one that we never write. That's true. However, it helps when we know where product is heading or what's the core value of the product to kind of support this vision. And the more understanding we have, it's less likely that we'll create something incorrect. So there is a whole topic of abstractions and stuff, but understanding where we're heading actually helps to make the code supported in a better way that will be more resilient to changes. And as part of like aligning with the vision, I find demos each sprint quite valuable. And I would like to hear tips on how to make them productive and interesting Julia and Alex.
Yeah, I could contribute here, but well, demoing and presenting your work and some information or some solution, it's a whole different topic. And this is a separate skill, and its importance, I'd say, it's usually underestimated. And making wrong actions, like not delivering some of the information that you should deliver, like not sharing some of the details, like it contributes a lot to misunderstanding and misinformation in the team. Like imagine like you have this iteration, and then like you mentioned, at the end of the iteration I have this demo, and you have an engineer and he's like, okay guys, I have nothing to demo, it's all backend. Or a slightly better scenario when an engineer starts to literally list all the implemented or updated methods. Like such presentation of information is not useful to the teammates, and often it is exhausting and feels like wasting time. And the main message that you can get from this engineer that you can read between the lines is like, I did something so boring that I even don't want to share it, or like I did something but I'm not sure about the final goal of what I did, so that's why I cannot assess the result, and I will share with you like something to show that I was busy. And by other team members it might be perceived as like, well, so the guy doesn't deliver the product value. And for me, like for quite a lot of time, I thought that the backend of the DevOps work, it was really undemoable. Like, and I even tried several times to elaborate presentations together with the engineers, but we mostly ended up just repeating the business requirements. Until one day I saw a very passionate product engineer talking about his work. So the guy, he used simple visualizations of architecture, like he used block schema. He explained why he created such a model, like what trade-offs he had to make and how this all brings us closer to delivering the first version of the feature. And such a presentation, it gives much better context for everyone. And apart from that, it's easier to spot issues at this stage. Like if the chosen model doesn't scale for the next feature to be added, the management will let you know about it like immediately. As to the tips, yes, like to summarize, remember why you are communicating certain information, like what's your goal and what's your mutual goal of the team. Like, does the information that you are trying to tell, does it contribute to this or your goal of your communication, or can it be like omitted? Because there are oftentimes when people communicate something like which is noise or irrelevant. Then remember your audience and speak in their language. Like, are they marketers, are they designers, are they product engineers, are they product managers? Like, do not talk to technical, to management, or to clients, and do not talk to abstract to the developers. And it's also a good tip to add always something personal to your presentation, like what were your struggles, what were your trade-offs, like what you liked most, what you hated most. It just makes you sound more interesting and you'll get more attention from people.
Yeah, Julia, you're so right. And actually, this is the good skill that helps better to understand the topic that you're demoing. Like if the skill of making the demo, it boosts the skill of understanding the topic better also. And we on Coupler.io, we do bi-weekly demo sessions, which includes all the team and development team, marketing team, design team, content team, data analysis, support, and so on. And it helps to, for example, for the support team to understand the impact and how product changes, which bugs are fixed, and if there are features delivered, and they could notify people from the recent cases to let them know that the features they asked or the bug they reported is already delivered on the production. And this is the good, like it creates the personal careness for the customers, and really improves the impression about the product. They start to love that. And marketing team at the same time, they understood how far we are from the end goal, and when they need to start their activities and preparation and their communications and so on. But what is more important, that all the team members are users of the product, and they can share early feedback. The guys are raising their hands and asking questions if they don't understand something or something is not clear. We're describing that, and this is the good sign that maybe this part has to be reviewed before releasing to the wider audience if there are questions within the team who are super close users of the product.
Yeah, it might also help to communicate the kind of known limitations, right, that we discover on the engineering level or while doing QA of the features. But it also, when demos are done by engineers who worked on certain features, it also helps to practice communicating skills. And actually, my wife shared that she's happier since we started doing that. So I don't know, maybe I started speaking more human language. Who knows? But yep, it's time for a brief recap since we're coming to an end. So in short,
so brief recap and then answering those questions because there are some of them.
Yes. Right? Thanks. So what to do to become a product-oriented engineer? So ask manager about the goal, like why we work on this story and what benefit it brings to the users, and think about that goal and how it can be achieved, because there are different ways. And actually, those unstrict requirements give us a chance to be creative in finding various ways to actually help users achieve their goals. So listen to other people, maybe they will share some ideas and opinions. Seek to understand before trying to be understood.
Yeah, and I would add here, it's like it can be harsh, the note, but if you feel that you want to become a product engineer, or if you want to develop in this direction, but you cannot do this at your current place, look for a new workplace. While I've heard multiple stories about people trying to change processes at their company, about people asking management like challenging questions, as Arthur advised, but like without having any nice answers to those questions. Like about people trying to innovate, about people trying to improve things at their work, and all without results. And well, I've been there too, actually. And yeah, there are always smaller things that you can influence. It makes you happy, like, okay, we've improved this process a bit here. But if the organization top, if they do not want those changes and they would, for example, ever want to literally implement whatever they say, you on your own or even with a small team, you won't change anything. So the environment in which you work is really important.
Yes, there is a famous quote, I think, from Momentum. If you do not like where you are, change it. You're not a tree. And it's as fun as it sounds, it's actually true, because feedback depends on the environment and what the environment values. So in some organizations might appreciate not asking questions, and some might appreciate asking questions. So it all depends on the environment and what it finds valuable.
And as any of the approaches, it usually has its benefits and downside, pros and cons. And here we have, like, in terms of in case of the product engineer, we have two sides. There are companies and there are individuals and engineers. And I want to just summarize some of the benefits and downsides for both of them. And for the companies, the one of the benefit to have independent teams that can make decisions, and it really decreases the micromanagement efforts, and people don't need direct instructions or super detailed requirements or something like that, and they will move forward and will keep direction, will keep moving in the correct direction, having the goal in mind. The budget-wise, it is also beneficial, especially when it is just the start of the product, and it is not necessary to build a huge team, and there will be saving in the collaboration. Less people involved in the processes, less time and management is necessary. And also it mitigates the risk of wrongdoing and make the bus factor much safer. There are people who could substitute each other, and there is nothing that could be locked on someone. As for individuals, the benefit to try the new activity in more safe environment, because it is not necessary to change the job, and it is not necessary to be fully responsible for the certain function, and you still can try this activity and understand if it is interesting for you. It makes the better hireability. It is easier to find the job, having more functions in the pocket, I would say, and easier to adopt to the ever-changing world that is changing much currently. Yeah, and there is also super cool to make something useful and successful, making the great impact and the option to create the impact. As for the downsides for the individuals, it will require to go out of the comfort zone. As any of the new activities will require to go out of the comfort zone. Right?
Buzzwords.
And it, huh?
Buzzwords, but yeah.
Yeah, the buzzwords, there are a lot of those motivational speakers pushes to go out of the comfort zone, but it will really require to do that. And also in the most cases, it requires to handle multiple contexts, because you will have your core responsibility and functions around that. And it will require to have better self-management and routing between them moving forward. And what is more important, to say enough in the proper time, that it is too much to me. And for the companies, what I would say, it is really hard to hire and find such people. And what helps to find the balance between T-shaped people and people who specialized with the deep expertise. People with the deep expertise, they are also great and they could help to resolve super complex solutions. T-shaped people could help in with the more various different situations, and then balancing the team with the different team members is important to resolve the problem and find people. In the company.
Yeah, thank you for this summary. So I would also add, lately I see more and more people who shift from just coding to implementing something that is meaningful to them. I think you, Alex, also mentioned it is a benefit for individuals. Some people start their own products, but still for the majority, the most logical next step is to become involved and to become savvy in the business part of the product and the process. We can call it the midlife crisis of the industry, but in a good sense. People start to look for meaning of what they're doing, and to do so, you need to understand the higher levels of what's going on around you. You zoom out, you see the big picture, and you rethink your contribution to this big picture. And here I like the quote of Pop and Dix from their book Lean Software Development, that great software grows out of a mind meld between a person who really understands the business and the person who really understands the technology. And I think, given that summary, we can now jump to the question. I saw some very interesting ones. What do you think?
Yep, let's do.
Okay.
The first one was from Alex about the product mindset, what it is. Well, Alex, I hope by the end of the webinar, can answer this question, but we can still have comments from each of you. I mean, the Alex, Julia, and Artur. Just few quick comments from each of you about it.
I think
the main difference.
I think we didn't do this, we didn't describe this term, this requirement for product engineering details. So my quick recap would be the product engineer, they aim to understand why. So they ask a lot of why questions, why we're doing this, what's the final goal. They have this big picture, so not only the part of the code they work on, but they understand what's the business goals of the whole this thing that is going on, what is the big picture and what is the end goal. And they they make the decision, they make product decisions. So a regular engineer, for each product decision, they will go and ping like product manager or business owner or product owner or whoever that role is. And product engineers, so they are able to answer the product question themselves. They are able to make those product decisions also themselves. They have this trust from everyone. And since they have this goal and the big picture in mind, and they have the right knowledge, they can assign the right priorities. So they don't need a special person like to prioritize all the stuff. Of course, this is a like teamwork, but product engineers, they contribute to this prioritization process. Next different, sorry.
Sorry for interrupting, and also being a user of the product is very important. And I'm not talking like being the user who just using it from time to time or clicking around or understand the direction, but trying to use the product you're working on for your personal needs is the nice trick. Like I use the coupler IO to my personal finances, data organization, or Arthur, as I know, also used it a lot for the house building and so on. So kind of find the practical example for the product you're working on and try to use it. There are some exceptions for sure, like if you're working on the product that is released for a certain country or something, and this is hard to use, sorry. I wouldn't recommend to try to use the microcredit product. Don't do that.
Yeah, you might ruin your finances.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes.
Yeah, sorry. So I think that one core difference is that you kind of not focus just on the task at hand, but look at how it will fit the bigger picture, which is the product itself. So it applies to all the roles, I think. And example from today, we were changing some internal datetime formats, and we had a task to change it in one specific place, and then the person who authored the pull request didn't spot that this will have inconsistency in how we show date times, right? On one page, we would show nicely formatted. On another page, it would appear as this ISO standard format. And I caught it on the PR review because consistency is important for users, and that would definitely spark questions from QA team. And this is something, right? Going beyond the specific requirements that someone prepared for you and looking at how it will work with the product as a whole thing.
Yeah, I would also add that product managers, they're also, sorry, product managers, product engineers, the difference is in the communication style as well. Like these are people who can communicate cross team, so they can find mutual language with not only with engineers, but like with literally everyone. And these are people who try to improve this understanding between the teams, so they contribute like to the whole improvement of the communication process.
Yep, so focus on the goals instead of fulfilling and meeting specific requirements.
Yeah,
I would say.
And the good exercise to speak the common language, to have the lunch break with the marketing team or with someone and speak on the common topics.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. I guess it's for Julia.
It's to me, yeah. Did you use parsing grammars to parse and categorize strings? This should be task engineers love to do, building language parsers instead of crude apps. Well, yes and no. The task, if we go deeper into the details, it was to categorize the anchor texts, like the text that we have between like a tags, like hrefs. And this was important for SEO. And so we didn't analyze, we didn't parse the natural language, we just looked for some keywords and different types of the keywords in different combinations of those within the string. So a bit, but I wouldn't say that the engineer didn't love this task, but it was challenging. And I think the biggest issue was that we didn't understand like the final goal and what why we were doing this and what criteria we have in mind. So he was trying just to literally follow the instructions. I hope this answers the question. Yeah.
Okay, and the next
one
one was oh, do you use any services, maybe SaaS, which help you to build different views on product development? Something like a product view with the global tasks and so on. Do you define something like the epics and so on?
I can also
would help organizing this workflow.
Yeah, I can start answering this one. It's a big topic, how to organize all the.
I guess it was the one more kind of event to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but trying to make long story short here, like for example, you can use any issue tracker, like for example Jira. Well, I know a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it, but something like Kanban boards with different views would work for this purpose. Like you have Kanban view with the data analytics task, you have Kanban view with engineering task, you have Kanban view with designers task, for example. Then speaking of epics and splitting them into tasks, what we found a good practice, like we do not split the epic, like product managers or people from the business side, they do not split the epic into smaller tasks and write all the details. So we sit together with the engineers, we present what we want to do, like a product manager could create an epic. Then we sit together, we explain, so this is the feature, this is how it should work, and we assume like that people will do this and that with it. And afterwards, the engineers, the product engineers are the best people to create stories inside those epics. Why? Because they know how to slice it in the best way, because they will need to implement those stories, not us, not managers. And it works perfectly for us. So this is the best process so far that I've seen.
Yeah, go ahead, Arthur.
Yeah, I can add to that for the midterm and long-term perspective, we have only epics in some sort of a roadmap view with a Gantt chart, also in Jira, where we can see and kind of predict where we'll have it, but on a very high level. So we estimate them using T-shirt estimations. And that makes us kind of understand what will go next, like where we're heading on a 6 months perspective or 1 year perspective. And yeah, we have Kanban boards. We use contexts, development context, design context, and so on to separate boards for different functions, as Julia said. And then if tasks are assigned, then you can just click your head in Jira and you'll see only your stuff. That's how at least I work with Jira. Alex, you wanted to add something?
I can contribute that we've tried a lot of different SaaS products, and unfortunately for us, there is nothing better than Jira we found. Like it is imperfect and hard to say that we love the product, but it is the most customizable product to organize the scope and having everything in the one place. And also I want to contribute, we have the other part of the process called inputs. The inputs, it is just a general ideas that any team member could submit them. We have the short URL to navigate, fill in the form and submit them. And we do the weekly review of those inputs within the smaller team with the product manager and with the marketing team, and prioritize them, accept them, and put them to the backlog. Or just put it to the icebox ideas. But what is more important, we very documented all of those ideas, because there might be a time when we will look on this box, and it happens. Usually we trying to group them if something appearing really frequently and map them to the support request and so on. So kind of join everything together. Yeah, sometimes some views could be done using the importing data to Google Sheets and then making the dashboards or Data Studio dashboards or something like that. If something super custom is necessary. But it is the good way to prototype the process without building and writing too much code. Google Sheets helps here.
Okay.
Next,
Thank you.
what are
Yeah,
some
next.
rules to keep all team members more independent to prevent blockers or dependent work on each other?
I could again start here and that I could share what you think. So, and this is a really good question, and this is a pretty common problem from what I've seen so far. So I would recommend to, and well, if you have, of course, these capabilities, like delegate authority to those people, like give people more permissions to do stuff, give them access to the necessary materials, to the necessary software or like services or whatever. Then share your responsibilities. Like share, if you're the manager, share your responsibility with the team. If you're a teammate, you can also share your responsibilities with the others. Then involve people in decision making, and this is really crucial. Like, and you, if you're the decision maker, you have like the benefits as well. You do not need to make all the decisions on your own. Like you will have the best minds that you have access to the all the intelligence that you've got. Then I will show people that you trust them. So oftentimes people are hesitant to be proactive, hesitant to make their decisions because they do not feel like that they are being trusted. Like show them that okay, you can make this decision. Okay, you can do this on your own, and people will stop asking you small questions for each small decision or each small step that they need to undertake. And you also mentioned here, like prevent blockers or dependent work on each other. And I could assume this is a often case. So analyze what types of blockers and the dependencies are most common in your team. So most likely you'll see some patterns there. And so once you have those patterns, you will see like what's the root cause, like what people do they need some access to some software, like to passwords or to some information, or like do they always ask you to make some decision, or do they always need someone's decision to proceed? So if you see like, okay, they always need someone's decision or someone's approval to proceed, like is there something that you can do so that people make this decision on their own, or like fasten this decision making process?
Yeah, right. The most of the approvals are not necessary really.
Yeah.
And people are proceeding waiting for them. And this is kind of, it pushes people to think on the goal, or think about the goal. And the main idea is to validate that everyone moving toward the end goal. And this is fine to make a small mistakes here and there. And if even the first decision or even the second decision of the certain teammate would be wrong, then like silently observing and helping and guiding through that is also fine. But the long-term goals that the small decisions can be made by people without blocking on each other.
And I think it's really important that you mentioned like it is safe to make mistakes. It is okay to make mistakes, and okay, you will make this mistake like two, 3 times, and then you will learn and you won't make it again. But if you don't try like to make decision, to take responsibility for something, then you'll always need someone like to approve and to confirm.
Yeah, and the other approaches also we use pretty often is to work in pair. It helps also to and even work in pair with the people from different roles. We pretty often use the pair programming approach when the engineers, they are sitting together and working on the same solution together in pair. But it could be used like for any role, and engineer with the marketing person, helping them to figure out how the problem with with Google Analytics or with something around the product, and close together with QA and so on. So mixing the different roles and working together is nice and helps to unblock. Like if there is the blocker, just go to the person who blocked it and sit together to move forward.
Exactly. So shorten the communication loop. Don't go through the manager, but go to the person who can unblock.
Yep.
Good point.
Yeah. And We've talked about the technical debt a bit. The philosophical question, I would say that to sum up, this is true that every line of code is the technical debt, but any step made in the life is the technical debt, and what is important to learn on the previous steps and make it better. And this is cool that you see that the things that done before could be done better. Then it means that some new experience is learned, and this is improvement, and it moves forward all the time.
Yeah, what is technical debt is a deviation from the learning, right? And it happens because we learn afterwards.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's natural that it will happen.
Nice term.
Okay.
Cool. Maybe some other questions?
We still have a few minutes.
Yep.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome, everyone. And thank you for spending this time with us. We hope this was insightful. And please, I've dropped the feedback form in our chat, and you will also receive it on your email. Give your feedback to us, and so we can improve next time. And you can also mention what you are up to regarding the topics, so we can discuss it next time. And in case you want to feel the magic of the product mindset and to practice it, you can develop this in your company or look for open opportunities in our company. So you're very welcome to visit our career page. We have always engineer vacancies open. So you're really very welcome. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.